This week in the Episcopal Church, we celebrate the life of Wilson Carlile. Wilson Carlile. He was an Englishman born in Brixton in South London in 1847. Through his family connections and his upbringing, he started his career in silk trading, particularly in Paris, but his business was ruined in the 1870s by an economic depression. And Wilson became physically and emotionally distressed and exhausted, and he turned to faith to help him find a new direction in life. He felt a call to ordain ministry and was ordained in 1881, and he served as a curate at St Mary Abbots in Kensington, also in London. And he was particularly concerned with the church's lack of presence among the poor. And he quite quickly encouraged soldiers, grooms, coachmen and other working laymen to preach the gospel in some of the worst slums in London. And the church establishment, believe it or not, accused him of dragging the church into the gutter. The year following that, in 1882, he resigned his curacy and he set up the church army, whose objective was to preach the gospel among the least of society. And again, there was great resistance within the institutional church, but finally in 1885, his church army was recognized by the church, and he continued this work with the poor and the least in society through 1926 until his death. And he was rector at St Mary at the Hill in Eastcheap in East London by that time. Today, interestingly enough, the church army still exists, and officers are admitted on behalf of the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Archbishop of York, and both those archbishops are vice presidents of the committee. And the church army still works to this day throughout the UK and Ireland. So there we have it, Wilson Carlile. I wanted to talk about a couple of things here, particularly in regards to our parish here at Church of the Incarnation. First of all, Wilson Carlile was a proponent of and a great enthusiast for lay leadership, not having to rely on your clerics to provide all the direction and ideas within a parish setting. This is highly encouraged these days in the church, and within our context, within the Church of Incarnation, as we continue through a time of transition, it's as important as ever that the lay folks stand up and work with the priests and the vestry to push our agenda and our program forward, getting ready for new leadership in the coming couple of years. So we as a community must embolden and enliven and further encourage lay folks to come forward and take leadership positions within the parish during this time of transition. And then secondly, I just wanted to focus on Wilson Carlile's focus on the poor, his focus on the poor. Interestingly enough, it's linked to what else was going on in the church at that time. The Oxford movement was also had a emphasis on helping the poor, high liturgy, and then after your Sunday service you'd go out into the slums and help feed and care for the poor. And it's a fundamental pillar, is it not, of the gospel message. We can think about Jesus in the gospel stories working among the least of society. This happens again and again and again. And once again in this parish, we are further investigating our outreach opportunities and our outreach ministries. We have a wonderful ministry with Moravian Open Door. And currently we're beginning to look at a new project that we can take up as an outreach ministry to in collaboration and to further strengthen our ministry outreach that will complement Moravian Open Door. So that's something for us to think about, particularly at this current time. If we think about what's going on with the pandemic, if we think about what's happened economically, particularly throughout the nation, but particularly in this city, I think we can expect, and I think many of us know, that over the next 12, 18 months we are going to see we're already seeing it, but it's going to continue, an increase in folks coming up to soup kitchens, food pantries. There's going to be a real problem with food scarcity, with those that have been terribly economically impacted by the pandemic and the economic downturn. And we, as a parish, I think, need to consider where we can stand in Midtown Manhattan, right in the heart of the city, what we can do to help particularly with that problem, outside the walls of our parish, into Manhattan and beyond. So we thank you for the life of Wilson Carlile. We thank you for his emphasis on lay leadership, his emphasis on helping the poor, for his example, and hopefully we can take something from his story as we consider next steps in the development and evolution of this community of faith, Church of Incarnation in Midtown Manhattan. Amen.